Welcome everyone who's here in the room and everybody who's on the phone with us. We're going to cover the API project, and this is the interviewer training. Hopefully you received the presentation. I also sent out a copy, or the most current copy, of the scripted interview. I've been told that there's a few changes needed, and so I will send out another version of that once we do a few edits on that. But we'll just get started. This is the agenda. We're going to just very briefly do a high-level cover of the project, and then a little bit on our very flexible project schedule in light of all of the things that have happened over the last 3 weeks. Some interview guidelines, a little bit about performing the interview, especially since this is a two-person interview. And then we'll get into the questionnaire review, which will cover part of the paper questionnaire, which is in Word. And then also we have an online questionnaire that you can use if you have internet access or you would be using to do data entry. So let's just jump right in. A little bit about the Open Data API project. Really, the purpose of this is to gather information from a number of agencies to determine some of the best practices that are currently used for open data, and especially in regard to the using of application programming interfaces, which are what APIs are. And so what we're doing is, and you're helping us do this as part of the interview team, is we're going out to meet with different agency contacts, and we are interviewing them using the questionnaire we'll cover a little later in this presentation. And we're using that information to create really about 4 different things. The first is a kind of a prelude to how you would share the data, and that's part of the one-page overview. So we're getting an idea of how data is shared, and so the first part is really the survey results. The second part is a one-page overview, which is a summary of that to help a lot of the non-technical managers understand some of the best practices involved with open data, and then a white paper, which will go a little bit more in depth, cover those survey responses and findings. And then last but not least, depending on how the white paper is received, we'll have a panel discussion to publicize the findings of the working group. Well, before the shutdown, we had a pretty well laid out schedule. Now, due to the shutdown and a few other things, we will start our agency interviewing period on November 1st. And the completion of this will be dependent on how many interviews we can do, i.e. our sample size. So we will take a look during that period. We'll be looking over the month. Keep in mind, as the arrow says down below, our schedule, of course, is shifting or has shifted due to the shutdown, but also to Thanksgiving. We know that holiday is in there, and that would cut probably a substantial amount of time out of November, so there's a very good chance our interview schedule may go into December. We will be collecting the data as it comes in. So as people finish their interviews, we are in data collection mode. And then, of course, we will be doing data analysis also in real time once we have enough data points to do that with. And then we'll get into the deliverables, both of which will be dependent on when we finish the research period. So what are the steps for interviewers? There's really 4. The first is sign up for an interview. The second it has to do with reviewing the questionnaire and the responsibilities involved. The third is scheduling your interview with their agency contact, and the fourth is survey data. And I've got a few slides on each of these. I'm not going to go in a lot of depth on them. I think they kind of speak for themselves. But first and foremost, if you haven't signed up for an interview or you want to sign up for other interviews, please go out to our SharePoint site, and we have a spreadsheet out there. Pull it down and update it with your name next to the agency contact that you would like to interview. Keep in mind that each interview requires a two-person team, and each person must be from a different organization or company. So we won't be able to do an interview with that person, even if you signed up, until we have somebody else who can do it with you. Once you have signed up or put your name next to the agency contact, please send me, Kim Ellison, or either Alma Deku, a email to let us know that you've signed up for that one, and we'll work on getting someone to go to that interview with you, if there isn't anyone there. So as far as review and responsibilities, take a look at the questionnaire and become familiar with it. Keep in mind that now we have a scripted version, so we've gone in, and many thanks to the team members who put some effort into defining the questions, and then also providing, in some cases, additional questions to help during the interview define a particular topic. And then, of course, since it's a two-person team, usually it works better if one person is the lead interviewer and the other one is the scribe. We'll get a little bit more into that a little later. Next, scheduling the interview. We expect this to be a bit tricky, but you know, anytime you're trying to set up a meeting with someone, it can be challenging. And we expect this to be challenging at this time of year going into the holidays. But an email will be sent out to our government agency contacts to give you a warm start. This will be sent out on November 1st, and it will introduce our team, the project, and request the participation of our agency contacts. From there, you can email the agency contact yourself to schedule the survey. And of course, you need to coordinate with your team member. And then once you confirm the interview meeting, it's best to send out a copy of the survey, and that will give you a warm start when you go into the meeting, so that your agency contact is actually familiar with some of the questions. Once you've completed that interview, this is step 3, we need you to report the survey data. It's not enough for you to go out and meet with the agency contact, but it's really important for you to bring that data back to us, because you know that's really the sweet spot of research, is getting all of those responses. So a SurveyMonkey online survey has been set up or created. Thank you, John Carney, and John Shaw, for being able to gather that data. So once you've completed the survey, if you've done it in Word, go out to the SurveyMonkey and then enter your responses into the survey. If you have an internet connection while you're meeting with your contact and you're actually able to access the survey, consider entering it in real time sitting there. And that way you can you know, kill two birds with one stone. You interview them, but you also have the data entered in the system immediately. So here are some of the recommendations for effective interviewing. And really, first of all, keep in mind that you are representing the organization. Yes, I know that you come from your company, and that's important, but keep in mind that you're really representing ACT-IAC in this particular role. So feel free to explain the purpose of our group and how the data collected will be used to allay any fears, because sometimes people are very reticent to share if they feel that a spotlight is going to be put on them. Make sure you take good notes and try to address as much of the questionnaire as possible. Keep in mind it's a rigorous questionnaire, and it's a bit long. So, you know, for things that people don't know about, feel comfortable moving past that question. Once the meeting has been scheduled, go back to the study contacts sheet and just make sure you update it with the date that you're actually doing the interview. That gives us an idea of when we will be receiving data. And then, of course, remember to thank the interviewee for their time and their input. And then for some of the so-called don'ts, don't just jump into the questionnaire when you meet with your person. Make sure that you kind of do a little bit of rapport. Ask them a little bit about who they are and their organization. It'll give you a frame of reference for the rest of the survey, and also, depending on your knowledge level of the topics, may even help you understand which ones are not applicable. Feel free to, of course, introduce yourself and your company, but keep in mind it's not a marketing or a sales meeting. So no closing calls at this time, no trying to close business. That reflects negatively on us, and we may not be invited back. Don't drift too far from the topic. Sometimes when you go into meetings, it's great and you start talking and you have a great back and forth exchange. Make sure that you stay on topic and come back to the survey questions, because that's what you're really there for.
Do we have any idea how long this may take? I mean, again, I understand it depends on how much you talk and explain and stuff, but approximately?
I know with our first run interview, it took about an hour, or actually probably a little over an hour. But
that's going to be important to let people know that, hey, I need an hour and a half from your calendar.
Yeah, and we're saying 45 minutes to an hour, but there's 18 questions in this questionnaire. For somebody who's technically knowledgeable, we could be there for a while. For somebody who's more strategically knowledgeable, I would probably say that a lot of the technical questions may go to the wayside, and it probably would be a faster interview. But I would definitely err more to the hour plus than, the 45 minutes.
We're asking for 45 minutes to allow them to talk about it. Stick to that. And they'll have, these are busy people, they'll have things backed up.
Definitely, and knowing all that has gone on, and of course in the last 3 weeks, of course people are backed up. We stopped everything right at the beginning of the year, so now of course they have to catch up. And so 45, if someone gives us 45 minutes, then I would say please work within that. And hopefully by sending out the survey beforehand, that may help to get you within that 45 minutes or within that hour, because if they've seen it and say, no, I can't answer that, then you know that you can go past those questions.
Or you can also potentially, you didn't feel like to have the question, so you have an opportunity to answer these.
And, in sending, to your point, in sending the Word document, if they fill that out and send it back, then, then you have the answers and you can enter them into SurveyMonkey. Keep in mind, we did discuss having them actually do the online survey. We felt it was best for the two-person team to go out and meet with them face-to-face. And, of course, you get inflections, you get a few other things that you wouldn't normally get if you had somebody filling out an online survey.
Yeah, but the chances of us getting a response to an online survey is quite less.
Yes. That is definitely correct. So in performing this two-person interview, keep in mind that it's really important to contact and strategize with your other team member. So make sure that you do this before you arrive on site at the interview. So talk to whoever you're going to do the interview with. Determine which role, who's going to be which role. So who's going to lead the interview and who will be the scribe. Communicate each other's interview styles. So if someone's a little bit more bold or a little bit more quiet, make sure that comes across so you have an initial understanding of how you might interact together. And then keep in mind that really it's expected that just because someone's a scribe, they're not going to be silent. They will be an active participant in the interview. So I think the expectation would be, it wouldn't be that the lead interview is doing all the interviewing. Both people on the team are interacting with the agency contact for this. So it's not like, okay, I lead and you're quiet and you write. It's considered to be a team interview. So in performing the interview, keep in mind that you do want to allow the interviewee to provide some anecdotal information. This information gives us insight into the whys and hows of decision making, especially in regard to the best practices. Be very careful of answering questions for the interviewee, because in many cases, sometimes you think, oh, I know exactly what that person is going to say, and you say it, and you stop their thought process or stop them from telling you. You really want to kind of open the space for them in that conversation to speak. Of course, be respectful of the time, and we just mentioned that, talking about whether you get 45 minutes or an hour and a half, try to fit the interview within that. Some interviewees can answer some questions. We're not expecting perfect data. So if every question is not answered, that's fine. We know that's the sample for that particular person. Just to note why you skipped it, if you have some reasons for that. And then, of course, for these first few interviews, it's really important to provide feedback back to the team so that we have an idea of what is successful and what isn't, and whether or not we need to change anything. Now, with a survey this extensive, it's kind of difficult to change the questions at this point, but depending on what goes on, we'll have an idea of if we can, make some shifts to make the interviewing process easier. And then, of course, have some fun with it. I mean, this is a chance to go out to another organization, meet somebody you haven't met before, and interact with them. So, try to have a little fun while you're doing it.